and Sister Audrey. Yes.
Hi. Guy, watu mnaona acha nitafute nisiwapatie tamaa, hizo ni utensils. Nasikika by the way? Nasikika sana. Sasa kisha pia natumai kwamba muoni yale ambayo yatawatamausha ama sawa. Audrey dadangu, habari yako jioni hii ya leo?
Mzuri sana mchungaji.
Mbona umetoa miwani ama ndio uonekane vizuri? Najua wewe utaona vizuri lakini nataka uonekane vizuri leo.
Sina haja ya kuwaona.
Sawa, haina shida. Kwa hivyo wakuu, jinsi ilivyosemwa, si kwamba tutatumia lugha ya Kiswahili, manake labda hatutawafaa wengi. Hivyo tutatumia tu lugha ya Kigezi, yani kwa wale ambao bado wana shida. Lugha ya Kigezi ni lugha ya Kiingereza, ndio ambao tutasarifu kwa leo. Alafu so I think with that we can just switch to we switch over to English, and Audrey, you can introduce us. You say who we are, what we are doing here at a time of the night. Yeah.
Nice. Okay. Let me introduce my co-host, or whoever he is. Let me introduce him. He is a son to his mother. He is a son to his father as well. He is a friend to his friends. He is an elder to his flock. He is, I've forgotten the others, but yeah, he is a friend to man and a servant of God. So that is Kembo for you. Then my name is Angela Audrey. And yeah, I have barely done anything in life. So my name is Angela Audrey. I am everything that he is, apart from, other than I am a daughter to my mom and my dad. And yeah, the rest that he is. Yeah, we are glad to be here.
Okay, thank you, Audrey. That was quite a periphrastic introduction. And so I think Unandu, at least you've done a lot, so don't feel bad. The fact that you've shaved your hair, you've sat in front of a camera, you've done a lot in life. Doesn't take much, you don't have to do anymore. Ama namna gani waku? Si amefanya enough at least. So, but anyway, oh yeah, Audrey, you're being asked whether you're an elder anyway. But people also don't be so violent. Don't be so violent. Yeah, so Audrey, we are here discussing or trying to lead out in a discussion, socially made without media. It's a question. So I don't know what do you think was going through our minds when we cooked this kind of a topic, and what really do we wish to achieve by it? You can let our audience know.
Okay, first, whenever this topic is being handled under any contemporary, like these weeks where youths are asked to, give out suggestions on topics that are going to be handled, which are contemporary, social media and things society always come up. And thus, it's a very cliche topic, but it's still a wonderful thing that each time someone is asked to give a topic, you'll find that they give the very things they only give all the such a thing exists. I've heard of it as an important topic to be spoken about, and all the time that urge to know more about it, despite the fact that we already know. So social media is socially made without that is a topic that has been chosen, and to me actually it's very opportune, because as I endeavored to prepare for this, I was also learning myself. It's like those times when you've been called upon to talk about something that you're doing, so because of the guilt, because I cannot be a hypocrite coming to talk about something that I cannot work on myself. I think this was an opportune topic given at an opportune time for me to also learn as well. So I pray that all of us are going to have learned by the end. We all have very different experiences, and I am waiting to hear of those very funny ones with people in social media. So yeah. You're muted, Kembo.
Yeah, at least. Thank you. Yeah, so as I was saying, unajua hii ni ile topic ka relationships. Utapata hiyo topic ukisikiza tu hivi, in as much as unajua kitu inaenda kusemwa, lakini bado unaendanga tu kusikia. But I hope hatujakuja out of curiosity. Of course, curiosity is good. We are not cats, so we won't be killed as such. But hopefully we just come curious, yes, but also willing to plumb more the depths of such a topic and see what new thing we can gain and what new thing we can put in. And about, since we don't also want to be hypocrites, I felt like to begin with, I'll just give you a fair share of my experience with social media, and especially as it concerns the social life. Just briefly, like in a minute or two, and then I'll also invite Audrey to speak of the same from our end, so that we, just make it more open, and also would love to hear an experience from any of you who would also be, so you can be thinking of how you can put it, but here is the template. So personally, I remember kwanza nilikuwa mshamba. Mimi mahali ambapo nimekuwa ni ushambani. So ushambani haimaanishi as in, okay, sitaki kutetea nilikuwa mshamba. Na by the way, kuwa mshamba haimaanishi ati unatoka village. Unaweza toka town, lakini town yenu ni shamba bado, no? So but having said that, so shamba yangu ilinifanya, I was wondering what things like Facebook zilikuwa, and all this. So I remember the first time I joined Facebook, kuna hawa wa shamba like kwa village wanakuanga bontao. Unajua wale jogoo wa jiji ambao wanawika kijijini. So jogoo alikuwa beshte. Nakumbuka nilikuwa hapo class 8 nimemaliza. So jogoo akaniwikia, akanichapia, bro, kuna hii stuff inaitwa FB. Umse alikuwa anaweza enda cyber kuangalia tu feed zake za Facebook. Anashangaa mse anachoma mbao, hiyo ni kama ndazi 4. But mse alikuwa anaendanga, ni zile time yenye the best phone a student could afford ni ile kaduda kai yangu. Though hizi siku hizi ziko advanced sana, hata unaweza ingia Facebook. But zile ni zile yenye, zile Nokia, nadhani zile zenye ulikuwa unaweza cheza Snake Exenzia, alafu ilikuwa pia na browser kiplani. So hiyo ndio, hizo ndio zilikuanga. So hapo ndo mimi nilianzia. So bro alinisaidia sana, by the way. Aliniundia account na email yake, akadipatia di password. Mimi akaniambia ndio hii sasa, ingia hii kitu. Kuingia, getting into Facebook, I think I was wondering what it's used for. So I decided, being curious, I decided to check out my friends who were in Facebook and to see what they were using it for. So I saw most of them were posting, themselves, pictures zenye wamepiga and their friends. I saw you could update your status. So initially I used to think whether you're married, single, etc. Ushamba bado tu. But eventually niligundua kumbe status inamaanisha tu you can give updates about your day. So me, I knew I had nothing interesting to share. I had sura yangu haikuwa inakaa zile zenye nilikuwa naona mabeshte zangu wengine walikuwa nao, sura ya kulaikiwa ovyo ovyo. Mimi ni ule msee, hata maybe nimekuwa better siku hizi. By the way, hata nilikuwa na pimples mob and what have you. So ilikuwa ile yenye ni torture tu, uko FB lakini ujui unaitumia for what. So but it came to a point I decided that hii kitu naona pia Waadventista nikaona wanatumia kushare quotes za Bible na zile profound thoughts. Nikaanza kusearch wale watumishi wenye wanajulikana. So nikaona vitu wanashaingi hapo, wengine wanashare picture zao za harusi, sikuwa hata na girlfriend, kwa na Breeza high school yote. So as in short, I had nothing interesting to share, but I knew I needed to at least manze ukwe na form bana. So I think I thought of now building a profile. I thought of how to become famous. Now this is after Form 4. Now the whole of high school I posted nothing. Okay, I think the only thing I ever posted watu wenye ni friends zangu Facebook, but hiyo picha nilisha delete. Ni shati yangu fulani hapo ya shamba red hivi. Na nilikuwa nakaa very dark. That was the only picture I ever posted, manze. The whole of the time until after high school. So after high school, I realized that I'm not a social person as such, but I needed to be social, and Facebook ilikuwa ina offer you opportunity. So the profile I decided to build ni because nilikuwa nimeambiwa niko najua Kiingereza au nilikuwa najichocha hivyo, nikaamua sasa nisome. Sasa ni ile wakati wa kusoma. So I remember consuming a lot of books. I went on a reading spree, and by chance I began writing poetry, and so I used to post poem, and now I used to jichocha that I'm doing evangelism. Kumbe I'm not doing evangelism, I'm just generating content to feed my Facebook. And then watu wakaanza kupenda, I saw likes, and then now I started looking every time I post a link. I created even an account, a writing account somewhere. So I used to post links and then see what people comment on. Zile za kwanza watu wana comment vizuri, good job, nini, una feel, manze umefika. Now Facebook is it, and then kidogo watu hata una post, kuna mtu ana like, kuna mtu ana hivyo tu. Ili feel vibaya. And then I realized that come to that point I was becoming dependent on identity issues now, crisis, in that I wanted to affirm what I thought people were using Facebook to affirm. I wanted to show that I'm intelligent, I exist, and msinisahau hivyo, msinione hivi. Mimi pia ni ule msee, niko na point manze, unaona. So but ilifika point I gave up on writing, and then I decided what's up kiasi. So I used to flood my statuses with poems. Nikagundua watu walikuwa, unajua ile ni zile time unaweka hadi read info ndio ujue watu wamesoma status. Alafu kidogo unaona tu watu wanasomanga hiyo poster ya kwanza, alafu hizo zingine numbers zina reduce, zina dwindle. I feel vibaya. So that's it. Nikaona yenyewe I gave up now. I gave up because now I realized it's not working for me, and it's also draining me. And then I asked myself, what if I am using this for a wrong purpose? What if I'm too insecure about other people being more intelligent, being more social, in quotes? Na mimi niko tu. And then so because I also realized that the people who were liking my feeds and what have you were not also could not give me a call to ask how I was doing ama nini. The people who wanaweza kutumia ukipost hapo quote ama ile profound thought umegenerate kwa akili kifalsafa kiasi hivi, mtu anakukujia inbox anakuambia we unajua zile emoji za kulift mikono mbili, una feel poa, una feel affirmed. But this is not someone who can go out of their way to even give you a call to know how are you doing. So the long run, I gave up. I think that was much for, I had it. I felt disgusted by how shallow things were. And so I gave up even on people. And that's why for the better part of my now university life, first year to around third year, Evie, people to me didn't make sense anymore. I had lost it. I knew I don't exist. Social space is not for people like myself. I just belong to ile category ya mtu anafaa kuwa kwa Eskimo. No, Eskimo anaishingi iglo, ndio. So nikajenga iglo yangu fulani, and for me I decided now the only thing I can do is to analyze and read people. So that's what I spent the rest of my life, better part of my college life doing. So people to me now became theories. So I started, theorizing about people, modeling them, understanding them as theories. So for those whom I interacted with, that's why you realize I could not spend much time talking with you on face to face, because mi nilishajua, if I ask you a question and you answer it this way, I know how that conversation will end. So that's why I didn't even care on sijui kuongea na wewe, because nilishajua venye unakaa hivyo tu. Yeah, so that's it. So that's it for me. So that's my experience with social media and how I gave up on it. But that's not the end of the story, because you haven't come to the end of this. Audrey, umekuwa ukinicheka sana. I don't think you have anything lively, but please be open and also say, give a brief on, your experience with social media, especially on
Hata
this social.
unanishangaza. Yaani wewe uliingia Facebook na SOP. I am sure kuna watu hapa wakiuliza walimit SOP at what level in their lives. Hey, yeah, I'm sure we are many, but hey, na kuinulia mkono. Yaani wewe uliingia Facebook na SOP. Anyway, yeah, my story with social media is very short, and yeah, very short. Nikiwa high school, I remember there was a time, the first time I had a phone was after high school, after Form 4. So tumeingia high school, tuko Form 1, Form 2, and then there are people who got phones in class 8, there are others who had phones in class 7. Then there's me, who did not have a phone, who did not even know how to operate one. So I get to Form, I think 3 or 2. Then one of my friends who was in a lower class than me, alikuwa chini yangu, alikuwa. So now everyone in that circle apparently had a phone and they could access WhatsApp. Mimi sikuwa na simu. So when I come back to school, naambiwa venye alikupost kwa status akakuwish happy birthday. Number one, I don't even know how WhatsApp works. I don't even know what a status is. But because wamesema that it's quite something to be posted kwa status ya mtu, pia mimi nikasema sawa, asante. But I didn't even know what WhatsApp was. I didn't even know what status was, and I felt so much misplaced because I didn't know these things. Sorry, I didn't know these things. Then ikafika, so I ended up finishing. Where I look at my schoolmates, and no one has gone to my school. School was not in my school anymore. Someone went to Harvard, another one went to US. The way Sharon said, people have gone to Oxford, and yet they're yet to even join campus. So I now started asking myself, should I? And then when it comes to age, no one is 18 years old. Everyone is 23. Everyone is working. Some are ICT managers, some are telecommunication experts, some are human resource managers. No one is waiting for their results. When ended there. Then we had a youth revival week. Yeah. At the end of of that year, when I finished. Okay? I'm old, by the way. At the end of that year, when we finished, we had a youth revival week. Then, of course, the topic had to come up: social media. Hey, and then now one of them said that some of us misuse social media to the extent that, because of course identity crisis, you would want people to tell you, oh, you look beautiful. You would want people to tell you, you're so intelligent. You would want people to keep on affirming those good things so that you feel nice. Then he said that some just wake up and then they post their beautiful. I had never heard of something called Instagram. Okay, I feel like I am talking very ill of my life. By the way, wadau sikusi ati nilizaliwa kwa village. Sikuzaliwa village, hata tuliwaishi Nairobi. Lakini hizi vitu tu ndo sikuwa nimewahi sikia. Yeah, so sikuwa nimewahi sikia. Oh, I think I had heard of it, but I didn't know of anything. In fact, from that day until later on when I came to finally realize what Instagram was, I thought Instagram is only somewhere where you post your face. Simply because that was the first idea that someone ever put in my head. So huyu anasema ati watu wanaamka asubuhi alafu anapost sleepy faces kwa Instagram. Mimi nikajiambia hapana, I am a very industrious girl. I cannot wake up and post sleepy faces on Instagram. So Instagram out. So now here I am with Facebook and WhatsApp. Finally, I now knew what status is. I knew what Facebook is. But my problem with Facebook was, hey, Facebook na motivational things. Mtu anapost tu picha vizuri, lakini pale chini caption very motivational, very motivational. So you start becoming hivyo tu, una post picha lakini caption inasema something entirely different. You're smiling lakini uko chini unasema venye life, life is a rose or something. I don't know, those to me they're really fun. If you want to get motivated, just go to Facebook and look at each and every person's caption after their photo. So yeah, there I was with Facebook and WhatsApp. Then I came to realize that these things, no, Kembo, wacha tuachie hapo, wacha tukiendelea we will learn about the rest.
So as you've heard, your hosts and co-hosts walikuwa washamba. Mtu asikudanganye ati alikuwa ameishi Nairobi ama nini. Ushamba ni ushamba. It cuts across. Sijui kama kuna mtu ambaye ana feel like experience yake na nini, social media imekuaje. I want to wrap up this first section of being open, vulnerable and honest, so that we tell you when we said it's an honest conversation, it's really such. And so sijui, anyone, just something brief to an highlight of your social media. What social media and the effects it has had on your social life, or the impact, yeah, that kind of thing. As you've heard from us, we've given the same. So is there anyone ambaye anataka just an highlight too? An highlight. But then kitambo, I used to think Nigeria was my dream country. I'd watched a lot of Oga movies and me they love them more. So my guy me they try to get some pikin from Nigeria, and there was a time I actually managed to send friend requests. Kuimagine tu from Nigeria they accept friend request yangu. As in, that made my day. As in to know that alikuwa anaitwa, she was a lady of course. Ungeanza kutumia mwanaume friend request from Nigeria. Inakuwa normal hivyo. So but after kuongea kuhusu hi ikakuwa how is the weather, akaniambia it's rainy, nikamwambia it's sunny in Kenya. Conversation ikaisha, nikafeel mjinga. And that was it. So anyway guys, kuna mtu
Yes, Kembo.
Yeah, Effie, just briefly too, and then we get out of this and tuendelee kwingine.
Okay, so for me, social media, my very first encounter with social media, it wasn't that good because it was way back in high school. I was using my mom's phone then, and somehow I felt that it lowered my esteem, and I felt intimidated because hiyo time nilikuwa naona as in sikuwa nimefika where my friends they were blooming on social media. I think it's because I was finding my identity in the wrong place, but over the years I have learned and it's no longer a problem. Yeah.
Thank you Thank you so much. So anyway, of course, we'll still talk. Now, something I wanted us to do is, when you talk about being social and what have you, we always tend to dissociate it from the Bible. We imagine that the Bible does not have presuppositions for who a human being is, who man is, our makeup, and those are the kind of things we also need to ask. Does God want us to be social? Did he make us social? And so once we get the biblical affirmations, then now we'll try also to explore, then what does social media offer? And we'll look at what does the Bible offer, then what does social media offer. Then we see what is it then that, why is it that then we get it wrong with social media? We get it wrong with social media. And as we said, we are not out to blame social media for anything, no. We're just out to criticize those who use social media. And this happens to be us. And yeah, so Audrey, let's now go back to the Bible. Let's see. Could you share with us a few affirmations about man and the fact that he's a social being from the Bible? And then from that, we see what that means for us, yeah, in this conversation.
Okay, so I'm going to take a direction where you, Kembo, will handle and tell us of how man right from the beginning was created to be a social being. Then I will handle the latter part, which is the example that we have been given, which is perfect, which is of Christ himself, and how social he was, how he remained so, but still he was not tainted in any way. So again, this is a very cliche topic. So most of the verses that I used are also very cliche, but it should not be so. A verse should always be as new all the time. So we are going to read from Luke chapter 2 and 52, which is a very common verse whenever it comes to things society. And it says that, and Jesus increased in wisdom and in stature, in favor with God and with man. So right from his birth all through to when this verse is being mentioned in the Bible, we are not told of anything about his life. In the Bible, kabisa, 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 it's the only incidences in Christ's childhood that we are being told explicitly in the Bible is when he got lost. No, not when he got lost really, but when his parents left him in the temple. Other than that, there is no other. It's Luke chapter 2 and verse 52. That's the verse. Luke 2:52. The one that talks about Christ increasing in wisdom and stature, yeah, and in favor with God and with man. So society is all about how you associate with fellow man, and society still, if you do not have a good relationship with God himself, then you cannot associate well with your friends. So the basis of our discussion today is how we can be social, as Kimbo is going to tackle later, social with men, and still remain, have that connection with God in order that your relationships with fellow men are okay. So as I was saying before, in the Bible, it has not been explicitly mentioned of the occurrences of Christ's life have not been mentioned. But in the book Youth's Instructor, I want to give you a short story in that book. There's a portion that speaks about Christ's childhood, and it says that Nazareth was not the most pleasant of places to be born in. It was not. It was a town where it was a poor town. There was so much violence and crime within. So it was not the most pleasant of places for a baby to be born. No, a baby to be raised. It was not the most pleasant of places where that baby would be having the perfect company, the perfect friends to grow up with. But I would like us to draw a very crucial lesson from here. Despite the fact that he was born in a place whose surrounding was so unpleasant, peer pressure and influence, a surrounding where Christ was not. It's not that Christ was never people do drugs, or it's a story of immorality, a story of being sensual, such like things. But then in Christ,
Audrey, your village network is very, very poor. Mtu anaweza piga hii picha muonyeshe in future by the way venye anakaa. Acha ni screenshot. Okay. I was saying, Audrey, your network seems to be poor. So poor. You're back. You're lost, Audrey. Okay, so but meanwhile, so laying down the foundations, we want to see God and how He created us, just to affirm that to be social is to be human, and to be human is to be social. Because I realized the challenges I had so much was trying to figure out how, thinking I'm an introvert. Yes, still I am an introvert, very serious introvert by that. But I was wondering how is it then that I'm supposed to be social and yet I am an introvert, you get? And these are the kind of things also I wish to address, so that it be not that most of us imagine that social media is what is supposed to make us social. But rather, even without social media, man was made to be social. And that's why social media is not supposed to define that aspect. We are not supposed to give it that leeway, though I'm going ahead of myself. But yeah, so to begin with, you realize Genesis 1:26 would say, and God said, let us make man in our own image, after our own likeness. And then the Bible says, let me just get there. And let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over the cattle, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth. Now, to begin with, you realize that when God is making man, God speaks in relation to himself. When God was creating the animals, he spoke in relation to the earth. He said, let the earth bring forth every species, every animal, every fowl of the air after their own kind. But whereas when God is speaking about creating man, he speaks in connection to himself. In other words, man's identity is found in God himself. And that's why, by the way, you realize the theory of evolution is wrong, because the very polemic nature of Genesis 1 is to tell us that when God was making man, he did not refer to animals, but rather he referred to what? To himself, you get. So man was made in relation to God. And you realize that what strikes us most about man are two things in Genesis 1. The number one is the fact that this very image, this very likeness of God is shown in how he relates with the world. You see, let us make man in our own image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion. You get, let them have dominion. So you realize then that man was made, this image, this likeness is not something abstract that we process. Rather, it's a concrete task that is given us. By the very fact that we are made in God's image, it means that we are supposed to be relational. We relate well with the world. We are at peace with the world, the inanimate creation, the birds, the fish, the dogs, the cats, and what have you, the cows, the donkey, you get all that. We are relational. We are created to be relational. But something else I want us to notice is how God phrases the fact that he's saying, let us make man singular and let them have dominion. But even more explicit is in verses 27, it says, so God created man in his own image. In the image of God created he him. Then male and female created he them. So then you realize the Hebrew word for man here is Adam, which means humankind. And then now you realize that humankind as a whole consists of the maleness and femaleness. That it takes the male and the female to complete the whole picture of mankind, the whole picture of representing who God is. In other words, it then means that man was not supposed to exist in isolation. He's supposed to exist in relation. that our identity is not found within ourselves, in and of ourselves. Rather, our identity is found, and we become socially aware as we relate meaningfully both with God and with other people. And that's why the totality of humanity is encapsulated in, male and female created he, them. And this makes up what? Makes up man. Now, to Genesis 2, you realize that the reason man is created first, Genesis 2:7, from the dust of the earth, and then the lady created later on at the end, is not to show, as some believe, the superiority of the male over the female. No. In fact, the literary structure of Genesis 2 will be against that affirmation. What it affirms, just to clarify that point, you realize, for example, in the Hebrew Bible, Genesis 2:7, there are 16 words used to narrate the creation of man, the male. And the same 16 words are also used to narrate the creation of the female. And something else also we have to understand is that the nature and the literary structure of Genesis 2 is what we call an inclusio device, where what is important begins at the top and ends at the end. And then what is in between is what describes the movement from the beginning to the end. In other words, what the Bible affirms when man is created first and the woman created last is not a movement from superiority to inferiority. Rather, it gives a movement from incompleteness to completeness. That man is completed. The whole picture of man is completed in the male and female relationship. That's why actually at the center of it all, we are told that it is not good for man to be to be alone. Now, that does not mean that it is good for you to get a wife, not necessarily. All it means is that man cannot exist in isolation. Man was made to be alive and and social. I hope we get that point. So you realize that biblically speaking, our foundations for all social relationships is not supposed to be outside the gift that God gave us. We are not supposed to find meaning out of this, a meaning elsewhere. We are supposed to find it where? In God and in others and that kind of thing. And that's why then it will make sense. For example, when we look at the 10 Commandments, for example, they give us a template of how to relate with other people in that, thou shalt not kill. Realize it does not say thou shalt not be killed. Rather, it is your responsibility not to kill. I hope you see that. It's your responsibility not to commit adultery, not that thou shalt not let adultery be committed against you. No, you shall not commit adultery. Both the one who commits adultery and the one whom adultery is committed with, they have both committed adultery. And so I see then that, I hope you now see that in the Bible, sociality then, to be social is supposed to be loving, supposed to not focus on self, but focus on on others. And that is love, actually. That is love. That is the biblical concept of love. That's when you're told you shall love your neighbor as yourself. It just means that you shall always act with the best interest of your neighbor at heart, not your own. You shall not steal from them. You shall not kill them. And so imagine if everyone went about knowing that they should not kill another person or steal from another person, then you realize no one will be stealing, no one will be no one will be killing. And then there's also something else we have to consider is this, that when we look at sociality again, we look at it from the aspect of uniqueness, that each of us is made unique. We are made unique in God's eyes. That's why you are not just another person. You're not just another human being. No, you are unique. You are unique in space and time. That's why, for example, you realize that it's in the Bible and actually in the Israelite culture of all that the aspect of personality is well founded. And this comes from the fact that they also believe that God was unique amongst all the other gods of the nations, that there was no one like him. And that will mean there is no one like you and me. And that's why you realize Genesis 9:7 will say you should not commit murder because he who sins is, you're decimating the very image of God. It's not that when I kill Mogere, there'll be another Mogere. No, I've actually blotted out someone unique in space and time. There'll be no one else like him. And what that then meant for the Israelites, so now we look at Exodus 21:24, and then I'll leave the floor for us to at least comment here, is that when now Moses was saying an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, actually it's not supposed to teach us on vengeance as such, but rather the word translated for means under. There is supposed to be an eye under an eye, a tooth under a tooth. In other words, being social is about ensuring that someone's eye can coexist safely and well under your own eye. Someone's tooth can coexist safely under your own tooth. In other words, we are not supposed to exist in competition and in brushing each other aside, arrogant and rude to each other, as if we are the only ones who have the right to exist in this world. No. We are supposed to coexist with each other, to relate well with each other, because everyone is unique and everyone deserves a chance to be alive, to breathe the same air. I hope you get that point. These are things which I didn't know, by the way. That's why I told you, for me, I gave up on humanity. And on being so-called what social. And that's why you realize when you look at Matthew 5, for example, Christ would say that it has been said of old that an eye for a tooth, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. But I say unto you, love your enemies. You get that point now, that aspect of loving, that everyone deserves to be alive. Everyone deserves to exist. Everyone deserves to be kind too. And that's why then you realize also that in the Bible, it is not said that you should be an enemy to someone. No. An enemy is not one whom you have made. An enemy is one who is your, I don't want to make it into a complex sentence. You're not the one who is an enemy. Someone else is an enemy to you. Your work is to love those who are what? Your enemies. And that presupposes that you yourself should not be what? An enemy. And lastly, then you realize that when we see that sociality is a gift from God, to be social, to appreciate each other, and to exist and live peaceably and harmoniously with everyone is a gift from God, then you realize apart from God, what we are doing is not just being social, we are perverting the aims of sociality. The aims that we're supposed to bless other people, we turn the blessings into what? Into a curse. That's why eventually you realize that what God tells us is that we cannot pursue social relationships that are not in line with his will, his law, his character. That's why if we do that, then we are manifesting the works of the flesh. Galatians 5:23 will say, now the works of the flesh are manifest, and they are this. Amongst them is reveling, drunkenness. You get party after party. People imagine that by partying they are social, right? But in God's eyes, that is prostituting your sociality and cheapening the very gift that God has given you to be social. And that's why then you realize for you to be social. Now I'm speaking to those who imagine they are introverts. I am still an introvert, trust me, though people don't believe this nowadays. But in those days when I was struggling, I realized one key lesson that God wanted to teach me is that it's not just about speaking. It's not just about being so-called social. Rather, it's about making an impact, being loving. And that's why you realize the fruit of the Holy Spirit is love, meekness, peace, joy. And that's why then lastly, I wish us to appreciate that God's ideal for sociality is not so much that you be likable or you have many friends or what have you, but rather that you make an impact for good in anyone and everyone whom you say are your friends and anyone and everyone whom you relate to. And so you do not need to be more sociable. You just need to be more loving. I'll repeat that. You don't need to be more sociable. You just need to be more loving. Take time to be holy. If you're having problems with your social life, it's not because there's a problem with being social. No, you haven't just learned from the master. So go to the school of Christ, that kind of thing. So from that angle, then I think we have affirmed that the Bible affirms that we are social beings. We need to be social. And yeah, so I don't know whether we can get a view or two, a question or two, perhaps a contribution from the audience about this. Because now from here, we are now going to move now to social media, an alternative it offers from biblical principles, and try to see whether the two, how they go hand in hand, where they part ways. And that's why we have to also be careful in using social media so that we don't use it for what it was never meant to do. Yeah, so any addition, any question about the biblical foundations for man as a social being? Yeyote ana swali or any comment? Audrey is back. Welcome, Audrey. Yeah, so any question, any addition on what we have said? Or was it clear or something needs to be simplified? Just a response from any. and then we continue. Anyone? Okay, thank you, Audrey. So anyone else? Was it clear? Was it clear? Okay, so what I'd like to summarize is this. I wrote it down, is that the big question the Bible asks is not, are you social? Rather, are you loving, renewed, and recreated in God? Are you saved? And do you know Jesus? Have you been taught in his school of meekness, humility, and above all, of service? To socialize without character is a disastrous perversion and distortion of God's ideal of being human and social in the love. I was scribbling a lot, hata sisoma handwriting zangu. But I hope you get the point that for us to imagine that we can socialize without godly character, without character built, solid characters, is a perversion of God's own ideal. Yeah. And so on that note, let's see. Odiri, you're back. Since you're back, I like you to engage us a little on something little now. Let's look at social media. Let's see the model it presents for sociality and why we have to be keen. Just something little to kiasi, and then as a tool for education, and from there we see whether the ideals match and where we have to be really raise eyebrows, alafu tuendelee as we bring this to a close here.
Okay. I'm sorry. My network is rather really poor, very poor, but I'm glad I'm back. I feel like this is a question. Okay, I didn't do CRE for one because naitwaje, those practical questions, application questions. I didn't do CRE for that because I tend to overthink a lot, and such questions required someone to be very shallow. Not really shallow as in shallow despising, but you do not have to stay. I go to church. I go to church to sing. I go to church to pray. I go to church to greet friends. Na mimi hapo, I'm already thinking, what do I go to do? What do I go to church to do, and such like things. So a question like, how does social media help you to learn? How is social media an educational tool to you? It's a simple question. There's YouTube. You can learn from them. There are people who have learned how to play musical instruments using social media. The people who have learned foreign languages using social media. YouTube you can join WhatsApp groups, Facebook groups that are Christian, or one that will enhance your skills in a specific aspect. You can learn how to cook on Facebook. You can learn how to, I don't know, maybe playing games. Yeah, indoor games. You can learn how to do that.
You can learn how to make your hair
through social media. Pardon?
Just saying, you can learn how to make your hair on YouTube. There's a channel.
Okay, I will. Okay, so Sharon can learn how to make her hair on YouTube. I can also learn how to.
Yes, I was referring to you. You can learn how to make your hair. Guy, nimesema hivyo hadi network ya Audrey ikapotea. But Audrey is a friend, so hata catch. Ni network imecatch. So I think next time atatumia video. Alafu ndio nini. So as I wait for her, I just want to fill in our thoughts. What we had envisioned, as we said, was we affirm that social media, you can use it to learn. But also you are sensitive in the sense that there are things which you cannot uncritically learn from social media. That we cannot, for example, I know we know these things, so that's why we want to spend so much time being explicit about them. We cannot affirm that all the lessons we gain from social media are in tandem with what the Bible says about those things. For example, it beats a lot of Christian sense for someone who believes in God is love to be at the very forefront of sharing and finding fun in insensitive jokes and remarks about a group of people, about a person, or about a condition. It beats the very logic of Christian sense for someone to find and peddle that which is immoral because it has been presented in a funny way. In other words, all we are trying to say is we cannot uncritically consume every content that we find on media, because you realize that everyone is out on social media to enculturate, to educate, to inculcate something in you, their principles, their values, what they stand for. And what we are saying is that it is not that we are against social media, but we are against the fact that you can uncritically assume every lesson in social media to be compatible with the Bible. We are against the fact that you are so shallow in your biblical thinking until you are not sensitive to that which is against biblical principles. Then we don't blame the social media. We blame those who use the social media and claim to be Christians. I hope you get the point. It's the same point that Christ said that I pray that you do not take them out of the world, but rather keep them from what? From evil. And so those are what we are criticizing and trying to find meaning out of. That there's a lot of nonsense that goes around, and we know how people demean the Bible. They demean even innocuously. You know those jokes like there was a time someone shared a joke. He thought it was a joke. We always think it's a joke, right? Unajua ati when God said man shall not live by bread alone. No, when Christ said that, he meant it was KDF. And of course, it's doing rounds and people are laughing and what have you. But the principle is this, brothers and sisters, that we have to know the Bible so well to know what is against the spirit of the Bible. And if we've come to that point where social media, we imagine that what we peddle and what we consume in social media is not contrary, and so we indiscriminately consume everything, then it just shows we have lacked that keen perception that we ought to have in these last days. Remember, the Bible will tell us that whatsoever therefore things are true, honest, just, if there be virtue, if there be any praise, think on what? Think on these things. So that's all we really wanted to cover in this section, the fact that we cannot uncritically consume everything and to imagine that it won't affect our spiritual lives. Yeah. So that's just to finish up on Audrey's thought now that she was cut out. Audrey, sijui kama kuna kitu au kusema. I just stood in for you because ulikatwa na network. And maybe this time round, because your network is poor, usituonyeshe sura yako. Ongea tu.
Be nice.
Oh, yani usi turn on cameras. I know when I say
Be nice, Kimbo. Anyway, the verse I would like to add, because you've put it out in a very beautiful way. My verse is a very common verse as well, from 1 Corinthians 10:31. Whatever you do, do all to the glory of God. So in whatever we do, is it something that glorifies God by engaging in whatever we engage in social media? Are they things that give glory to God? So yeah.
Thank you, Audrey, for that. And then now for me, what I wanted also to do here is just to address a cognitive concern, a psychological concern, that is, of our age, our brains, as those who are born postmoderns, as we all are. Those are, wale post-1970s and stuff. So it was actually realized in the psychological world, there's a phenomenon called parallel processing, that our brains have become structured in such a manner that, number one, the centers for smell, touch, there was smell. Let me find that for my notes. Kiasi tu. I should like being accurate so that yeah. So our brains have actually altered lately in the way of processing information. So the brain has established new limits for stimulation. At first, it was only the smell and taste that were affected. But since the early 80s, all sensory perceptions are included. Generally, it is hard to stimulate certain centers in the brain. And so the brain, it finds it even hard to filter out finer stimuli and only respond to coarse sensations. So technically, what that means for us, our brains, is that that's why for you as an individual, you realize that you need a lot of violence in order for you to know that you are watching violence, for example. Unajua zile time yenye nilikuwa fan wa kung fu, by the way, so much. Yani ile yenye kwanza zile za watu wengine wako wamezaliwa bado, but kulikuwa zingine zilikuwa inaitwa Action Night Citizen, nikiwa mahali hapo kwa naziwatchingi Friday night hadi saa 6 hivi, alafu asubuhi unamkia Sabbath, alafu unaenda church. But hata Mogera alikuwa fan Action Night, for example. So you realize that I loved the Chinese cause they were so conservative in their culture. Their fighting ilikuwa poa. Nilikuwa napenda zile venye. What I used to love most is how the good person always wins, and by hard work. Hapo anaenda training nini and stuff. But what I meant by that is that you realize that our brains have come to that point that they have been exposed to a lot of sensory data, such that the finer stimuli are not detected as much. As in watching a mildly violent movie like Kung Fu, though their kicks weren't as less violent, but compared to horror movie ama ile yenye watu, kuna zile zenye watu wanakatwa na mavisu and there's blood, it's gory all. You realize that our brain actually is stimulated more by the gory, but does not take note of of the less violent. What that will mean for us is this, that you realize that what that will mean for you as an individual is that the constant bombarding of information that you expose yourself to incessantly actually makes you come to the point where you become ineffective in processing data. In fact, it has been shown then that what happens is that some of the data is now stored in our brains without it being processed and without us attaching any value to it. In other words, that's why you can totally watch a movie where it's dealing in sex trade and sexuality is there, but hiyo si pornography kwako, ni tu part of the movie. Unajua venye tulikuwa tunajichocha, it's part of the movie. Unakuwa ulianzanga na kuforward na kufunga macho. Kuna time nilifunga macho. Unafunga macho kwanza, alafu unaanza kuforward, alafu sasa bado unaanza sasa kukande, unaona, that kind of thing. So for you realize that it does not matter, as in inakaa si mbaya. But then, so you realize that is stored in your brain and you do not attach any value that this is against purity or what. And that's it for us who are exposed to a lot of social media. As in, there's a hack to our psychology in that it ventures on that vulnerability. That is why someone who claims to be a Christian can share content which is contrary to Christianity, but still feel okay. Hajafanya kitu yote mbaya, you get. That's why someone can spend a time reading an article that is explicit or violent or what have you, but is not moved. And you get that kind of thing. So also that's something that we have to take care of. We have to really protect our brains. And what would that mean for us is that then we have people who, they don't care anymore what they see, what they drink, what they eat, and haijalishi, cause either way, zote tu ziko sawa. And that weakness also is a bad one, because sasa unapata, it comes to that point when you cannot process two contradictory thoughts and discern between them. And so you affect your powers of discernment. So you can accept illogical statements. You can accept, you cannot sustain I don't want to make it technical as such, but I hope you get. From there, you can extrapolate the fact that being overly exposed to social media can actually bank on search to affect how your brain works and take advantage and even spread further nini hiyo shida. And so with that, that is really one of the last segments. I think we have like 10 more minutes and then we will be done. So we've said much on our side, and I want to hear something from someone based on what we have said. Are these things true? Do you find them true in your life? And that kind of thing. Is there anything else someone wishes to add on to? Yeah, we just wish to hear from you before we perhaps present final concluding thoughts on this. Yeah, so mtu yoyote tu, anything, be it what you've learned, be it what you would like to add as we finish. Anyone?
Excuse me, Kembo.
Yeah, Audrey.
So there's a question that Jared has asked concerning the First Corinthians 10 and 31 that we mentioned before, and I was thinking that is quite a different topic from what we are discussing, like we've been discussing all through. So maybe at the end of the entire thing, you could mention something. Have you seen this question? You're muted, so we can't hear you.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, nimeiona, but I think hii tunaweza muona PC.
Yeah.
And then itajibiwa inbox.
Okay.
So guys, I'm assuming that it's hard to assume. But yeah, so Sharon Nyaboke is now coming to where we were headed to. So as we said, Audrey and I, we don't really wish to criticize social media as we wish to criticize those who are using it. Because in the long run, I don't want us to come to that point where we blame social media for what it is, for what you've allowed it to do, as if you have no choice. You get? Unajua ile point, you blame the devil as if you cannot say no. We just want to empower us to exercise free will, to assert that which we have let go of and to reclaim it back because we have the power to. Yeah, and that's why social media ina shida. Please, let's not put the blame elsewhere. The blame lies totally and only on us who use it. Okay, and that's why it will be okay. I don't want to rant somewhat, but I hope you get the point. So having brought out these vulnerabilities in our cognitive in the cognitive realm, as cognitive psychology, for example, talked about the vulnerability in terms of it being an ineffective social tool, education tool, and some of its principles are contrary to the biblical principles. Then what we wanted to do here, I think, Audrey, was there something you were to say before I say something alafu ndio tumalize? Let me see. Was there, or the ball is still in my court?
I'm not sure. Have we like transitioned to the next thing, or we are still behind? I didn't get quite well. What did you ask?
Oh yeah, and I think we have transitioned to the next thing according to our program outline. Yeah. So lastly, and then now we talk about how to mitigate some of these effects. I think that's where Audrey and I will come in. Now here, I just wish to speak simply. So having said all this, you realize social media cannot be used as a substitute for that which it is not meant to do. Number one, key areas I wanted to highlight in. You cannot use social media to gauge how social you are. You only gauge how social you are by how loving and how Christ-like you are. If you have none of that, you're not a sociable person. You're going to pervert your social responsibility and duty, both to God and to humanity. Number two, you cannot use social media to find your identity. Identity is found in God, in a meaningful relationship with Him, revealed in meaningful relationships with other people. And so that means you cannot use social media as an substitute and as an excuse for your lack of social skills like I once did. I cannot be so good at typing long sentences that make sense, and yet I cannot construct this in a conversation. I cannot be so good at posting emojis, and yet I cannot express these emotions. I cannot be so good at, and I don't want to criticize that lady. And this, I know I won't do that. It's a temptation I won't fall to. Here is where I don't want to give examples because I'm training myself to be sensitive to people. Neither can you use social media as a substitute for personal, deliberate evangelism. We have to stop this. Allow me to use this word, and I don't want to use it. It will be offensive, so don't allow me to. We cannot use social media to post verses and quotes and every other thing, and yet we are not actively engaged in personal what? Evangelism. It's a lie we are making there, you get. You cannot, yeah, fairly enough. Those are the three things I wanted to touch about. And so to offer you briefly, personally, I'll allow Audrey. Audrey, perhaps you could share, now that we've seen we can't blame social media, how do we help men and women who are perhaps struggling with, they realize they have given social media too much and they wish to reclaim it back? What will be some of your advice to them? What can they do? Like say, for example, someone who wants to be more social, where should they start without social media, for example? They've realized that they're using social media to prove how social they are, and yet that's not the test here. So help such a person, perhaps. What would you say to them?
That you're putting me so much in the spotlight because I am included in that women, that men and women, I am included there. But okay. So first, what I did, because I realized I was spending, even in those two social media platforms I was in, or on rather, I would waste videos, motivational videos where I don't know, teaching you kindness, teaching you just those things. Very little time, having your devotions. So what I did, I uninstalled. Yeah, the first thing that, and Sharon asked the question whether it is breaks. Definitely. And if there's one.
Audio yako bado inakatika, guy. Ni sawa. Maybe I'll pick up from her also. I learned, and trust me, the best way to learn how to be social, to gain your identity, is to draw closer to Christ. Have a personal, deliberate relationship with Him. When I gave up on people and understanding them and relating with them and treating them as theories, it took an experience with God to get me out of that, to help me appreciate people, to help me know how to talk, how to listen to their commonplace stories and what have you get. So I will advise then that be deliberate about your devotional life. Set aside time every day. Take time to be holy and speak oft with the Lord. Something else is this. If you realize that you spend every free time you have on your phone, either on WhatsApp or Facebook, just know you are one of these people we are talking about. It is taking so much that it wasn't meant to. So what you can do is replace that. Start little. Be deliberate about how you're going to spend every free time you have on your hand. The best way to do it, for me, it was learning to be deliberate on how I spend my time. So that it will be memorizing a hymn or reading a book. Yeah, just having something other than my phone, you get. And also something else is this, that reading books about the effects of such can help, and the books that are also practical. One book I will advise that we all read if we really are keen on knowing how to reclaim back that which we have allowed social media to take from us is a book called Digital Minimalism. It's by Dr. Carl Newport, a computer scientist theorist. Is called Carl Newport. So it's digital minimalism. Yeah, digital minimalism. Just teaching you the fact that what it's all about and why you should not give it so much power that it's due it. Yeah, Sharon is saying it's a good book. Yeah. So, and then something else I want us to do is, I want us also to be very real and honest with our situation. Don't pretend. For me, I had to tell God I had low self-esteem, and I was just using it to express and to seek validation and valuation. I needed help because I was a mess. I was a wreck. And if you're that honest, God will never leave you out. Yeah, and at this time, I'll allow also those who, oh yeah, Mogere is also giving other, and in case you have any other practical suggestion, you can mute notifications to remove the constant urge to update or check, yes. As opposed to writing a to-do list or timetable, thank you, assign yourself time when to use social media, that's also true. Oh yeah, and many of these other things, you'll find them in the book, Digital Minimalism. And personally for me, what I decided also is I'll be deliberate in making social contact. So that's why, for example, since I save all my contacts on Google, I decided to not sync the Google with the phone I use for WhatsApp, so that the only contacts I have on WhatsApp are my board members, because we're in one group with them, and a few friends whom I can give a call via WhatsApp. But for the rest of the people, I either text or do a call. Get to know how they're doing, hear their voice, yes. So if you've been using social WhatsApp to text guys and you've never called them, hiyo time ungetumia kutext na kuangalia statuses za watu, call. Something else is you can undo your notifications, by the way, and the background notification, so that when you're working on something, no notification inakuja huko juu ama ina pop up. But there is more to this than what we have said. Yeah, and so I think with that, that's all we had. Sijui Audrey ameenda wapi, network yake sijui imemfikisha hadi wapi. Acha nione kabada yako. Yeah, ni kama network yake imemtupa nje. But yeah, so I think that's what Audrey and I add from our side. The fact that we are not blaming social media. It will be logical to do so. And we're only blaming ourselves for what we've allowed it to do, for the much control we've allowed it to have over our lives, and by God's grace, to empower us to be honest about what we are struggling with and to seek help and ways out of it. Because in the long run, what motivated me most was, what kind of person do I want to be? What kind of person do I want to be? Do I want to be one who is loving, caring, real, genuine, authentic with people? Or do I want to be fake? So ask yourself these hard questions. What kind of person do you want to be? And when you get a good answer, you'll realize then you'll work towards building such a character. It will mean taking some radical steps, perhaps. If you realize you don't need Facebook, it's a waste, that's up to you. I cannot decide that for you. Personally, I've scheduled my Facebook account for deletion. Still counting the days, because I realized after I had my break with it for like 2 years and stuff, I realized I don't need it anymore. Because the purpose I was using it to serve, it's no longer there, and I don't have that urge to seek validation through it. So I realized, yeah, why not just delete it and live a simpler life, So that's it. It will mean, that's why I'm saying at times it's radical decisions that you'll have to take. Because the problem is, what kind of person are you becoming, and do you like that person? If you don't, kindly just take time, think, and make the necessary decisions. But I think We cannot give a lot of advice because much of it could be customized. But what I wish us to take home is this. We are to be social. Yes, it's true. But apart from God, you are you're just perverting. And never allow social media to do that which it was never meant to do. Yep. So back to you, Mogere Mwayo.
Thank you very much, Kembo and Audrey, for leading us through that very informative, very insightful session. And I pray that each and every one of us here has been blessed with a practical idea or with a framework of thinking about how to use social media going forward. And I pray that this may be impactful in our lives. That being said, I'd like to welcome someone to pray with us. To complete that session, and then I will just give a few announcements, and then we'll close the meeting. Ian Machogu, you can pray with us. Ian, are you in a position to pray with us? Okay. Aminga, you can pray with us to end that session.
Okay, am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Okay, let's believe and pray. Heavenly King, we thank you for the hearing tonight, Lord. And may you bless Brother Kembo and also Audrey for the wonderful insight that they have presented before us tonight, Lord. And may what you have learned not just go away like that, but let us implement and learn to use our time well, Lord. And let not social media dictate how social we should be, but rather let our loving service, Lord, and emulating your example help us to know how to be social, Lord. And if we have gone wrong in the past, Lord, help us to start a new life. And above all, let your will be done, nevertheless, not of our own. For it's in Jesus' name we do pray, believing and trusting. Amen.
Okay, thank you, amen, and thank you for praying with us, Aminga. I see where time is far much spent from at the time in which we are supposed to finish, and so I'll just like to invite us all to our Bible study on Monday. That is next week on Monday. And for any visitors who joined with us today, feel welcome again. I can see Bonus Happy joined with us. Daniel Anointed joined with us. James, it's been a while. Laureen Hills, welcome. Laureen, I'm happy to see you here today, and Sherry too joined with us. And so feel welcomed again to join with us in the Bible study that we'll be having on Monday at the usual time. And God bless you and have a nice weekend. Receive greetings from Madam Chair, who's not feeling well today, and so you can also pray with her. And so that being said, I will share in the words of the grace to finish the meeting. May the grace of our Lord Jesus Christ and the love of God and the fellowship of the Holy Spirit be with us now and forevermore. Amen. Amen. Do have yourselves a lovely night.